Welcome back. Well, a controversial new bill that critics claim would open the door to government censorship is now before the Senate. The bill is C-10. It's a tax bill amendment, and it would change guidelines on tax credits for movies and television programs. One provision would give the Heritage Minister discretion to deny tax credits to any production deemed contrary to public policy, a move that escaped the notice of MPs when they were considering the bill in the House of Commons. Well, what is going to happen in the Senate? Joining us from Parliament Hill, Liberal Senator Yoine Goldstein. The Conservatives, we invited them to have a representative. They declined to take part. So, Senator Goldstein, thank you for coming on the broadcast.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being with you, Don.
The bill, how controversial can this really be if it got through the House of Commons with nobody catching it, and now it was only after some people who had been promoting this kind of change boasted that it was happening that anybody paid attention?
But that's precisely the point. It went through the House without anybody noticing. And the other day I suggested that people were blindsided. I'm not suggesting that this was done intentionally by the government. But when you have a bill that contains 500 pages and explanatory notes that contain 200 and some pages, and there's a single provision containing 6 letters, or 6 words in the bill, and a small paragraph in the explanatory notes, it's not hard to miss it. And it was missed. Fortunately, very fortunately, it was caught at the Senate level, and we plan to have hearings about it and see the extent to which that should be amended or changed or dealt with in a way to preclude the possibility of government censorship of movies and television productions.
Okay, so you're going to have hearings, and I guess you'll have people both in favor of it and against coming. When
Yes.
When are the hearings likely to get underway?
Well, we have a bit of a problem because we have a very full schedule at the Banking Committee. We will probably start in the beginning of April. I'm sorry, I'm battling a cold.
Yes, I'm even more appreciative that you would come on.
Happy to be here.
And you can amend the bill and then send it back through the House of Commons, should you deem that to be necessary.
Yes.
And then the House could either pass it in its original form and send it back to you, or accept your amendment. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
And now that people have been alerted on the opposition benches, one assumes maybe the amendment would have a better chance of being accepted. Although, is there any possibility you won't amend the bill? Are you approaching this with an open mind, or now that you've read it, have you said, I think that's government censorship? Well,
we're all approaching it with an open mind. The big issue is not so much what the bill says, but what the guidelines are going to say. And we haven't seen the guidelines. If the guidelines limit themselves to precluding things like child pornography or hate, depictions of racial hate, I don't think anybody will object to those kinds of guidelines. If, however, the government determines, or the Minister of National Heritage determines, that the guidelines should be dealing with value judgments as to what we should be looking at as Canadians and what we should not be looking at as Canadians, I think a lot of people are going to be very concerned and very upset about having that kind of discretion in the office of the Heritage Minister. And a lot of people have been talking about and using words like censorship. And that's a dirty word, as you know, in Canada. Some good number of years ago, well before your time, Don, there was an importation of a book called Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. It's a classic piece of 20th century literature. A customs agent at the border confiscated those books. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, essentially, that the government has no business determining what Canadians can read.
Well, but the provincial governments of all censored movies over the years, they've pretty well got out of that business now. But I mean, that was a big business in Canada for a long time.
They have not censored. They have the right to censor. Censor, but they have not used that right. By the way, the federal government.
Well, they used to use it. They're not using it now, but they used to.
The federal government never used it.
No, but the provincial governments did.
Provincial governments.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was saying provincial.
Yeah.
All right.
A kind of censorship already exists de facto. I wouldn't call it censorship. What happens is that some movies are rated in a way that precludes younger people from going to see them if they're considered to be inappropriate for that age group. So I think we have the mechanisms already available to make sure that younger people are not exposed to the kinds of scenes that they're perhaps not ready to be exposed to. That having been said, again, I think those judgments should be made by parents and not by governments.
Senator Goldstein, very interesting. Appreciate you coming on. Talk to you again.
Thank you.